And that's the advantage. You know, you look at the work of Edward Bernays, you know, and you know his uncle Sigmund Freud. Those two basically found the Achilles heel of man, and they basically learned how to exploit it. And just those visual scenes, we just become so accustomed to that TV and just what we see on it. We're led to believe that that's the truth, and nobody ever questioned it until, you know, not too long ago. And then really people started looking at it, and technology was the problem because they could fool us so easily. But, you know, then people started the technology that they had for themselves now trickled out to the people. So Photoshop then became available to us. And, you know, After Effects and all these different software platforms became available to the regular people, and people began to get trained on it. And then they could spot these fake things, and, you know, now it's become a problem for them where the technology is now caught up. And we can use some tools that we never had before to find these fakers.
Speaking of the fakers, let's get to some of your work now. One of the things that I'll tell you what I think made me first realize that you're definitely on to something significant. Mm-hmm. Was your work concerning the Kathy Gifford shooting?
Giffords, yeah, Gabrielle Giffords.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Kathy Gifford, she's alive. Sorry, didn't mean to freak everybody out. They didn't kill Kathy Gifford. Kathy Lee Gifford is fine. Some people are really wigging out right now.
Yeah. The Gabrielle Giffords event, that's sort of what started it off for me, and the Jared Loughner mugshot, and from that point on.
Hold on.
Well, I mean, when I first saw I didn't see it live. How about now?
All right.
Better now?
You were just breaking up for a second again.
Okay.
All right.
Well, when I saw the Giffords event, and I didn't see it on the news, I saw it on YouTube in different. So I basically, the first thing I saw were the witnesses. And just from watching the witnesses, it was just there was a problem when it came to consistency of their testimony, and it's just they looked like characters. I mean, they were wearing wigs, and of course the one that really caught my eye was Stephen Cates, and that was the guy with the pink hair. That was Jared Loughner's poetry classmate. And when I saw that, at first I said, this guy's faking it. Who's this guy fooling? You know, so I tried to contact him through Facebook, and I sent him I was pretty rude to him at first, and so he sent me back a nice, polite response, and I started talking to him. So he was the first one that I communicated with, if that was him. I don't know, saying that was his account, and that's who he says he was. So, but I later on found out that I thought he was a lawyer, and then later on found out from that he's actually related. He's a Greenberg, so he's a family member, and he works for New York Times. So, yeah, New York Times again. But so I started this, this whole adventure into finding out what was the real story, what happened there. I wanted to know what was going on, and that's when I was introduced to Joyce Riley on the Power Hour, and I was doing her show regularly about that, and she funded me to go down to Arizona and actually do some, hit the streets and do some investigating. And I did that, and from there, it branched out where I found the connection between the Pima County sheriffs and all these other individuals that are actors from that area, and it blew up. It went crazy at that point.
So was that your first really big story that you looked at?
Well, no, I mean, I worked on the Kennedy assassination stuff with Robert Groden when I was 15. I had the best-selling book with Groden called High Treason, and that book was used to make the movie JFK. And then the second book that we did was The Killing of a President, and that was a pretty successful book as well. But then we both partnered up and did the JFK: The Case for Conspiracy video documentary that I released through Blockbuster. So, I've had the experiences back then early on, and then from there, of course, I went into college and then to corporate, and then back into web and print and multimedia design. But I didn't really work on conspiracy stuff from that point on, other than keeping in touch with people. But
one of the things, now, before I even saw your work, I knew there was something wrong with that whole story. I mean, it smelled from the very beginning. It just reeked of a script. It reeked. I mean, there was just so many other things besides, not even involving the personages behind it, that just were huge red flags for me that this was a scripted event.
Yes, absolutely. I think that was the same feeling that most Americans got when they watched it.
Most Americans?
Most of the people that I've talked to said initially they had that feeling, but they didn't know what it was. They couldn't really put a finger on it, so they really didn't look into it until they started seeing some of my stuff and other people pointing out some different things. They thought it, but couldn't couldn't really say it, you know.
Well, one of the things that stuck out to me, you know, right off the bat was like the YouTube channel. That seemed like a psyop right there. That just had classic psyop fingerprints all over it. Here's this guy that, you know, shoots this congresswoman in the head and she lives. That alone makes you go like, what? You know?
Yeah, a through wound with a hollow tip bullet. Yeah.
Okay, you know, that shouldn't have happened. She should be dead. The other aspect of it is, you know, right after the shooting, you start hearing about this in the alternative media, right? And there's hosts in the alternative media when the story breaks out going, we need to, like, download this guy's videos, you know? Because, of course, the guy's allegedly a truther, right? Which is suspicious on its own, just right there.
Yeah.
And
he had lots of things in his what they make up about him that's just totally
yeah, and just looking at the YouTube channel alone, I'm like, wait, this woman had subscribed to this guy's YouTube channel out of only 2 people before he shot her?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, we'll touch on that on the other side of the break.
All right.
All right, we are back. Some Halloween music there. Appropriate. Let's see if I got any other spooky sounds to play. Wait. That's pretty spooky. Yeah, there we go. All right. I don't know if you saw, I posted that image that I mentioned in the room earlier, the obvious war shot.
Oh, no, I didn't see that. I haven't had that open because it was causing problems with the connection.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not watching it.
All right, so moving on, let's see, where were we? Kathy Lee Giffords. No, Kathy Lee Giffords.
Yeah.
Gabrielle Giffords, is that the name of the congresswoman?
That would be it, yep.
Okay, all right.
And, you know, it's funny you would say it like that, though, because if you remember back on that day, you know, nobody knew who her name was. Nobody could pronounce it. They were saying it was Gabrielle Giffords. I mean, the newscasters didn't know who she was. Nobody knew who she was. So, you know, that was little clues that I went, how come you don't know who this person is? Isn't she a congresswoman? Because I didn't know her, though. I was like, how could you not? So then I started looking in the National Archives for some records on her, and her name and 5 other individuals, 4 of them being her adjacent districts right around her district, and 1 in L.A., don't have any records for these Congress people.
Oh,
none.
That's a great point. So no voting record?
Nothing in the National Archives. Everybody else, I looked at every single representative, and I put them on this video, and those 6, those 5, it was 6, I believe, that didn't have any records. The only record, I take this back, there was a record for Giffords, but it was basically somebody had a blog that was talking about Reagan being shot, and it mentioned her shooting in it. So that was the only record for her.
That was it?
That was it.
Okay, there's another, you know, I guess what you would call smoking gun, you know, that's pretty blatant right there. A congressperson, did she just get created out of fiction?
Well, I mean, the National Archives has over 10 billion records. Anything that happens in Congress is going to be in there. And, I mean, like I said, I looked at all the members. I looked every single one of them up, and they all have, you know, everything written about them, and, you know, they're voting and things like that, and just everything that they've done. And basically she has nothing, and neither do these other people. And they're all right around her district. That was amazing to me. So how do these people – I don't understand. I don't know. You know,
that's a great point. The one I was making earlier is when he looked at this guy's, you know, he's got a website, a YouTube page. He's got 2 subscribers. One of them being this congresswoman that he ends up shooting with a non-existent voting record.
Yeah.
Okay. You got her amazing recovery.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, just in case they hadn't, like, oh, and by the way, I don't know if you, I tried. I knew better. Just from what I understand about neurolinguistic programming and whatnot, when I looked at that guy's videos, there was something seriously wrong with them. And
they were contrived, yeah.
Yeah, there was something very, very fishy about them. And whenever you know, you sometimes just have to go with your gut instincts. I don't know what it was, but when I looked at them, I'm like, nobody should be watching these. I mean, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I try to tell people to do. You know, don't believe what I'm saying. You know, go look it up for yourself. But I want them mostly to start using their gut, because that gut instinct that you have is usually right. Even if it might not be totally right, it's going to set you in the right path so you can find out the truth. And you see a mother up there on the news, she's crying her eyes out about her daughter being kidnapped, and she's not crying, there's no tears, the gut instinct goes, wait a second, something's wrong with this. And, people will jump on me and say, well, you're insensitive, what about the child? I'm like, what about the child? This mother's up there and she's fake crying. There is no child. Use common sense. So, they do these things to just bash our heads in constantly over and over, and then finally we just accept it, and it's just, no, I'm not going to accept it anymore. I don't.
Yeah, and as you're saying, with that incident, there's just so many things wrong with it that, even without seeing, like, the personages behind it, as you pointed out, you should know. I mean, another thing that stood out is the girl that was killed that day.
Yeah.
She was born on September 11th, 2001. How uncanny, right? Mm-hmm. And this guy happens to be the guy who shoots her is a truther.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, who writes this crap? Well, we know.
Yeah.
We have some idea who writes this crap.
Absolutely.
But it's obviously this is a bad Hollywood script. Not even a good one,
Oh, it's totally, yeah. When you look at this whole picture, the whole story, it's so textbook, just, operation from the military. It's so textbook how they're doing this that I can't believe that people haven't jumped on it even more. But you see, immediately after that shooting, what was the first thing that happened? They started, pitching the anti-guns, the anti-free speech, and this is coming from a sheriff that's supposedly for 50 years experience, and he's now saying things that could, totally throw a trial and a mistrial. I mean, and they release one mugshot, and then 3 days later they release another one, the Marshall's one, and it's a different person. I mean, can you say mistrial, please? I mean, that's just. It's ludicrous that they even try this and then continue to do it. And then you got the fact that her husband, right? He's a twin astronaut. Now, who do we know that had the reputation for twins and, with paperclip and all that stuff? We see those telltale signs of individuals that we've seen using other stories and things that all lead back to this one individual who is known for the twins, and that's Greenberg, who is Mengele.
Okay.
So, yeah,
and that I'm not sure on, but again, state your point.
Sure.
Then again, maybe I don't see it because I don't see the face. I don't know about that. But
well, here's the thing about him. And this isn't just the photographs. I've pulled up his declaration papers for when he came to the United States and his citizenships and all that stuff. I pulled those up. Now the documents I've looked at, they appear to be real documents, but the information on them is fake, and they've been photoshopped. The signatures from one has been photoshopped to another one. But when you look at the dates on them, it says he came to the United States in 1929. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense. So when you look at that and you see all these fake things, you have to think about, is this person even real? Was Dr. Mengele, is he a fictitious person, Was it just a whole big story? And is this person just the one that they've used as the model of it? Yeah. I mean, the questions go on and on.
That's a good question, and I want to get this when we talk about some of the characters a bit later. Because that's a very good point you make. Okay, so this angel of death, right? How they've gotten here before the war even started?
Yeah, 1929.
Valid question. Again, I want to get back to this Giffords thing. Mm-hmm. This girl that was born on September 11th, and this is where I started saying, you know what? Because I looked at some of your work, and again, when you see people come out especially on the internet, you wonder. It's normal.
Sure.
It's paranoia is a heightened state of alertness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had told me that. I can't remember who it was, but anyway. So I'm wary, and this is one of the things that I saw where this was one of the first ones, that I was like, oh, he just nailed this one. One of my listeners, I think she's actually in the chat room, her name's Vicky, she had sent me a compilation of some photos that you had put together, and some was, because I guess you pointed her to through you, she found the albums herself. Mm-hmm. And she put together a montage of this girl that was allegedly killed on that day, and the girl who was after that day celebrating some girl's birthday.
Samantha Sexton, yes, yeah. Yeah, that was the face. When I found those pictures, that was the first face that I looked at and went, wait a second, I found the photograph of, Christina Taylor Greene, and then I learned out who it was and learned the whole family. But yes, I'd like to see that picture that she did, by the way. I would love to see that. Okay,
I'll get that from her and forward it to you. And I'm like, that's it. I mean, I can see this clear as day. That is the same girl. So again, you have, and I was like, whoa, he nailed this one, because that girl that allegedly got killed on that day when this congresswoman who got shot in the head miraculously survived, she's still alive. And here she is smiling with her sisters and celebrating and...
And then you find out that her grandfather, her great-grandfather is Maurice Greenberg, and then her, it's like, what? And then her grandfather is Michael Greenberg, who is Dallas Green, of course. But then you see these photographs of their family album, and then it all makes sense. It just goes, wow, wait a second here. Because Michael Greenberg's wife is Vicky Strong Greenberg. So then you're tying it into these massive, huge families and these people that are just, very big in politics. And then you start to paint the big picture of it.
I was just talking to somebody about this earlier today when I was telling them the guest I was going to have on. And these people that don't normally listen to my show. And, of course, they're very incredulous when I'm telling them this. Just those points alone, And the one thing that you pointed out that I did bring up that I saw in one of your videos, which you raised a very good point on, was here's this woman that got shot in their head. Here's this actor who is pretending to be her best friend that helped stop her from dying because all the blood loss, from her head, right? And here he is wheeling out the stretcher, not a drop of blood on him or her.
Gabe Hernandez, who supposedly he applied direct pressure with his bare hands to her wound and held that wound until the EMS workers got there. And then he walked with her, held her hand all the way to the hospital. And, you look at it, and there's not a drop of blood on him anywhere. On the EMS workers, nothing. On a stretcher, nothing. There's no blood except for a little rag that's on her face, and it's just a couple little drops on it. So, I mean, that's the photograph that I use to really make the point that really wake a lot of people up quickly, because they see that and go, there's no way. Okay, now they know that they've been lied to. So from everything from that point on that they've told us about Loeffner, about Christina, about all these different people that are involved is all moot. It's all bogus stuff that doesn't matter, because we know that what happened in that parking lot was not what they said. It was a drill. So that's the point where I try to make people to understand that they tried to throw you off and they tried to take you down these long roads and, Loeffner crazy in college and it's all made up. All made up.
Yeah, I mean, where are all the guys that, I'm sure they could produce them now, right? If we ask the question today, right, where are all the guys that went to high school with Loeffner? Where are all the guys that, he knew and hung out with? I'm sure they could produce them. They'll have to write them. And I look at something like that, and you know what? Like you're saying, the guy holding her hand, her aide, because he loves her so much. It's a good Hollywood script, but it's actually a really badly done Hollywood script, because if this was a Hollywood movie, somebody would be like, okay, we need to have blood all over the place, et cetera. And, I think this is one of the things that gives me some, I hate to use the word hope, but I will, okay, they are very thorough at dumbing us down. My work has shown the social engineering, dumbing us down, making us not trust our own instincts, and only believing the visual cortex, or the information we see via our visual cortex, which we know can now be manipulated, as James Cameron has admitted, versus trusting our other instincts, senses, common sense, and whatnot. You always just look at, if it comes over that television, they must be real.
That's right.
But when they hire their script writers for this really badly drawn out information, they have to reach into the talent pool of what they've done to us. So the writers they hire are just as dumb as we are.
Yeah. Or the actors are just it's an open call. There was an open call in that area for, and the exact words were they were looking to build a core group of actors that they could call on at any time to do, quick shoots. And they could range from, office settings to outdoor settings to, police reenactments. And it was things like that. So, they're doing open calls to people in that industry. Now, if you want to be an actor, that's fine. If you want to do these things, that's fine. But here's the problem that they have. Actors only get jobs because they can show a reel of what they've done. They can show some of their past work. Well, when you get hired for one of these gigs, you can't show it. But, you can't say, yeah, I'm Jared Loeffner, that was me. but these idiots that they're doing this, they sneak pictures out there, they put it up on the Facebook as a different name, or, they'll do just dumb things because they're just actors and they're just very, they're impressed with their own work. And that's their downfall, because I constantly catch these things, especially on Facebook. I was very surprised using the tool that they designed to monitor us as a tool to monitor them.
Yeah,
and
as you said, why would these people put out photos of themselves at, their little sweet 16 parties, their bat mitzvahs, whatever, right?
Well, that's a different thing altogether, because that's different, because who would, in their right mind, if you found these photographs, would connect these people together as, these actors? Nobody. And I wouldn't either. There would be no way that I would have connected them, except I saw one face, and that was the face when I was searching for some photographs. I saw Jennifer Sexton, and then when I clicked on it, there's Christina Taylor Greene. So that face right there was so put into all of our minds as the little girl that as soon as I clicked on it and saw that face, I went, wait a second. And that was the only way that I connected this whole album to this whole thing. If I hadn't seen that, then they would have had that album out there forever, and nothing would have been, I wouldn't have found it or wouldn't have thought twice about it. So that's an excuse for them. They would have thought nobody would have even known.
Yeah, the talent pool that they're hiring from, or actually they're part of. I'm sure that the people that are actually part of this family, they're just as stupid. They use, like you said, they use Facebook. They grew up using iPods and iPhones. They're not very bright. It's like I say, the talent pool is, what they've done to, and this is kind of where, whatever they're doing to society. Okay, this is going to become more blatant as time progresses, because you're going to have that idiot that goes like, don't you know who I am? I played Gerald Luther. Damn it, why won't you hire me?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we do have that. We have, Brandon Lee Pittman, who was the one that they used, and his mother actually played Phyllis Schneck, who was one of the murdered victims of Jared Loughner at that place. And, here's a picture of his mom is sticking her head into the studio that he has on his Radiant Helix Media website on Facebook. And there's his mom, and there's Brandon, and you look at it and go, wait a second, And then you see other people that are acting in his little movies that he's shooting that are acting in other events like the Oath Keepers events. And you say, wait a second, this is a whole crew of actors, and they're all doing these same things, and they're appearing over and over again in different stuff. And then you see Brandon Pittman in the background of a Stuart Rhodes Oath Keepers event, and I show him on one of my videos. He's walking in the background. And it's like, okay, then you see same person, Brandon Lee Pittman, at the Occupy movement, working the cameras. It's like unbelievable. So yeah, they think that we're that dumb, but we're not, and they are that dumb that they do it.
Oh, so one of the things that you point out that, again, I don't see it. Again, I'm just saying I don't see this, was the Amy Fisher, Joey Buttafuoco as a scripted story.
Man, okay. Well, here's the deal with that. When I saw that one of the family members, and this was Denise Vole, and she's a big-time member on the strong side of the family. She's a New York socialite. You go to any of the New York or the Hamptons websites where they post all the famous people out there going to all the parties. She's on there quite a bit. So when I saw, and she's a very, very particular nose. I'll put it that way. I mean, she's very particular nose. So when I saw this teacher that was supposedly shot at Columbine sitting there in a wheelchair, and I looked at that face, there's no way that you could tell me that wasn't her. So then I said, wait a second. So this whole family, they're still doing these things from Columbine days all the way up. And then I said, okay, who else got killed that day? And then the next person I saw was this person named Rachel. Well, Rachel was one of the girls that they said was killed. And who is telling us about Rachel? Rachel's older sister, who looks a lot like Rachel, who has a nonprofit that she goes around collecting money for Rachel's Fund. And I look at this girl and I go, wait a second, because then they have videos of her, home shot videos of when she was younger, before she was supposedly shot. And I looked at this, and the first thing I saw, I was like, that's Amy Fisher. And the announcer in the news that was telling the story about this video said, oh, she's an aspiring actress and wants to be, and I went, wait a second. So I said, okay, let me look at this a little bit further. And then I started finding photographs of her. Since she wants to be an aspiring actress, there's a lot of pictures of her posing. And I found some of their ear, and then I look at Amy Fisher, and that's her. So she plays this role as Amy Fisher, plays this role as this person that got shot, and then, of course, now she comes back as her older sister, who nobody knew she had an older sister, and so now she's a different person. So she can flip back and forth into these roles and play Amy Fisher whenever she wants, and then flip out of it. So then everybody's looking around for Amy Fisher, and she doesn't exist. So she does porn as Amy Fisher, but then she's, in real life, you wouldn't connect her to that. So it's like this altered.
Yeah, because there's money to be made there. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, and you know, I'm sure she's real proud that I figured that one out and put it out there. But hey, you know, you do those things and you're going to get caught if you you put it out there.
Well, you do have to wonder. I remember a conversation I had a long time ago, which kind of lends some support to this. I remember one of my friends was really upset because she was watching the Oscars, right? And this was not that long after the whole Amy Fisher incident, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, Amy Fisher had to go to jail, but here's Jody Buttafuoco. He's walking the red carpet to the Oscars, right?
Yeah, and there's the name again, you know, the naming thing.
Buttafuoco. Well, now it makes sense, and especially after having, because this was before my work actually even progressed.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting. Buttafuoco.
Yeah. Fukushima. Yeah, it's all.
I totally missed that.
It's all these jokes that they play on us, and it's just, you know, laughing or loner. It's just, they do it on purpose. They really do. And I think the other reason that they do it is they use those code words as a way to alert their buddies out there in the news media that this is the story, you need to run this story, I think. I really think that's the way they communicate.
I think so, because, you know, going back to that day when my friend asked me that, and she was so pissed off that, you know, what right does he have to be on that red carpet, right? And I said, well, maybe it's because he's an actor. Without even really thinking about the implications, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, there's a good I think so. I think there's a good reason Joey Buttafuoco was, damn, I can't believe I missed that. Buttafuoco.
You know, I grew up in Philadelphia, so I mean that was at the time when I was at home, and we're just like, what is this?
This guy's name Buttafuoco.
This guy. Oh, yeah. Who is this guy?
Buttafuoco.
Yeah, and then you look at him, and you know, he's just like, come on, please. So yeah. And then you start looking at all the different stories, and I'm finding the same family members repeated in different stories over and over throughout the years, and it got to the point where I was like, I cannot believe they're trying to pull this off again. And recently with the Tony Greenberg, unbelievable. You got to give the guy credit. He's talented. He's got a lot of talent. He plays a lot of different people, and you know, when you pointed out that that's Tony Greenberg, he's been on Alex Jones quite a few times as different characters.
Yes, different characters. Yeah.
And then, you know, he's been on RT, of course, and everything else. But, and then, Pepe, what was it, what was the last one? Pepe,
Le Pew?
No, I'm trying to think of the name. I can't think, I'll think of it in a minute. But it was like a drug dealer from Mexico. I'll think of it in a minute.
I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll think of it in a minute. But, yeah, he plays just many of these people that are just the funny names that he uses. It's just hilarious.
Perhaps the guy, you know, should get to walk the red carpet because if what you're saying is all these roles is him, he's a better actor than, let's say, Jack Nicholson or Brad Pitt because, like, any movie you watch with those two little bitch boys, what do they play? Themselves.
Yeah. No, right? Pepe Escobar, by the way.
Okay. There you go, Escobar.
Come on.
That must mean he's South American and involved in drugs, right? Because Escobar, the NLP.
Exactly. Yeah. And he has a French accent, but all of a sudden when he's talking in the interview, he switches it over accidentally to a Middle Eastern accent and then switches back, you know. So, but yeah, he's a very good actor. And, you know, I've met like Gary Oldman. He played, you know, Oswald and JFK and all that. And I tell you what, he's got a very good gift for when he meets somebody. He can, within about 10 minutes, he can watch you and listen to you, and he can mimic you. And he's really scary at what he does. It's very, very talented. And you know, you've seen him on a lot of different movies where he plays these totally different characters throughout, and he's very good at what he does. Well, Tony takes the top level on this one. He is just, man, I've caught him down, I think, about 15 different roles.
I'll just add, though, that because I know my listeners are going, you will not get respect out of me for actors.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I'm sort of with you on that.
Now that you mention it, I have speculated on the topic before. The idea of, let's say, lookalikes. I know there's some threads out there about people being clones or, you know, doppelgangers, and I'm willing to entertain anything, you know, like the idea that this, who knows, you know, we know so little.
True.
All right?
Yeah, that's the thing that I like to say about mine. It's different from those lookalikes because, you know, it's all coming from the same family.
All right, tell you what, we'll pick that topic up on the other side of the break. Welcome back. We are halfway into the show. My guest, Ed Chiarini, is getting into his material, strange word, Research?
Yeah.
No, I've already said that research means wanking to porn on the internet, so we got to come up with a new word.
His investigation. There you go.
There we go. That's better.
Yeah.
This is a short segment, so before we get into anything, I wanted to just address what I was saying at the other side of the break there. Whether or not there's a lot of shady things going on, and there's questions I have. Like, for example, why does I brought up on my show before? Why does Jared Lee Lugner look so much like Glenn Beck? And I don't know if they draw from very small families. There's people out there with theories of clones or doppelgangers, whatever I've talked about. But it does seem that, there's what you do, which is to prove that person A is person B.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just asking you to speculate here. Now, what about something like that? Like the Glenn Beck and Jared Lee, obviously not the same person, but why are they so similar?
Well, because I think a lot of that stems from when I did the Truth or Girls show one time, and we talked about that image, and that was an image that was done by a by a news media, I believe, or somebody in the news field, and it was put up on Google. So when I looked at that image, I pulled it and I sent it to the Truther Girl, and she looked at that, and I think she misunderstood what we were talking about. And later on after the show, she was saying that it's they're taking pieces of Glenn Beck's face and making it and things like that. And that wasn't the whole. That's where I think a lot of that rumor started from. But it had nothing to do with Glenn Beck and all that. It was an overlay that somebody had put together with Glenn Beck's face, and he did have a couple of the features that were similar. But when you overlaid them, it really looked like them. But later on, we of course found out that it's Brandon Pittman. So and we see his modeling shots, and it's his face. So. And, of course, he's tied in with everything, and all the other people are tied in with his Radiant Helix Media that are involved in that group, too. So, just all the evidence piled together.
Let me throw something else out there. One of the things we see in the Mafia movies, besides the BS that the Mafia is actually Italian, is we see these Mafia people saying, okay, how am I going to grow the family? How am I going to maintain power, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons they would have so many children, because ultimately, at the end of the day, the only people you can really, really trust are your own family. That's
what I've said to many people. They're like, why are they using their family members? Well, who else can you trust?
Yeah.
You can't trust your family. So, and that's the other thing. When they do these events, a lot of them, like the Christina Taylor Greene thing and all that, they always set up a nonprofit to go with it. And that nonprofit, from what I've heard, and this is speculation, that nonprofit money, whatever they can generate from it, is theirs to keep, and they're promised that they're not going to be prosecuted if anything ever comes out in the future because of that. But that's speculation. I don't know.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. We'll address that on the other side. We'll let Paul Kelly take us back, and then come back to a nice long segment. Oh, actually a very, very appropriate song there. Real by Real is our reality what we see. Before the break, we were going on to, we're talking about, the idea behind these personages. We're all familiar with the case of Paul McCartney and the idea that a false Paul McCartney was created, which is very plausible. Because I don't know if it did or not, but if something did happen to Paul McCartney, and even if that something was he decided not to do it anymore because he didn't like what was being done. Mm-hmm. I've speculated that the Beatles were the world's first boy band that was put together.
Yeah.
They had too much invested in that group, too many plans for them, too many lyrics to put out to control the population and influence certain events, to just drop it, creating this super band. So it seems to me, why not hire some actor to play him and then be him?
Well, I looked into the Paul McCartney thing because people had sent that to me, and I did a lot of I spent about a day on it, and from what I found, the majority of the inconsistencies with the photographs and the videos they could be explained because of technological reasons, or with the camera, the lens, the depth of field, things like that, and the medium that they were actually shot in. And then also you have to remember that since they were so famous, they did shoot movies, they don't have them on set all day, so they have lookalikes that do stand-ins while they get, they take the light readings and things like that. So there's people that are there photographing that entire movie production, and a lot of times, by either as things get stolen, photographs get stolen, or they get leaked to the press just to start a rumor like that. And, that may be some of the explanations for some of those people. But, a lot of the things that I saw, and I believe they could be totally explained by technological reasons.
Oh, I did look at apparently there's a video out there, I don't know if you've seen it, where George Harrison explains what, was really going on and how all their lyrics were about this. And it just reeks. That video just smells of manipulation.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty blatant. This guy doesn't, whether or not it's George Harrison is irrelevant, but he makes the whole thing. And again, you can spend all your time trying to figure out whether or not that actually happened, but isn't it ultimately just another rabbit hole?
Absolutely. Or look at Elvis. I mean, Elvis never wrote a song in his life. He played other people's songs. So, I mean, you want to talk about a manufactured, person that could be, there you go. And, what happens when he starts getting old and looks funny on stage? Do they kill him off? And then all of a sudden his stock and all his music goes through the roof and he enjoys the rest of his life. And, he can do autographed, posters or whatnot and give it to his friends. And all of a sudden, they can sell it on eBay and, they make a fortune. But, the guy, maybe got fed up with it and, he's basically, it's a manufactured person that we believe is real.
Exactly.
And, I mean, could it happen? Sure, absolutely. I mean, absolutely it could happen. I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, I mean, why not? There's actually a movie out there about, coincidentally, just fits into my work. One of the aspects of the movie is that Elvis made a deal with an Elvis impersonator because he was tired of it, and the Elvis impersonator became Elvis, and he lived out the rest of his life as the Elvis impersonator.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we see them use Casey Anthony or the OJ trial and things like that, or these glorified trials on TV and how much money they make from them in the books and everything that comes with it, I mean, it's just, could they do it physically? If you had to answer that question in court, yes, they could do it. Did they do it? I don't know, but I mean, it's definitely something that is totally plausible.
Yeah, and coincidentally, that movie, the other aspect of the movie was he was in an old folks' home, and him and this guy teamed up to fight these ancient Egyptian beings, vampires that would come and suck out people's souls through their rabbit holes.
Yeah, I could see something like that in Hollywood. Yeah, I mean, the TV in Hollywood has such a grip on people that it amazes me.
Exactly. It's real by real, and again, the two words are similar for a reason, where you have your film reel and the real world.
Absolutely.
And go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm saying go ahead.
And I look at the stuff, and I mean, one of the cases that I brought forth on the last show I did on a similar topic was you look at somebody like Lindsay Lohan. And one of my friends pointed this out to me. There's these photos of her when she got incarcerated, right? And you look at the two photos, and they're years apart, and it's obviously two different people. It's so blatant. Mm-hmm. It's like, what are they? One of my friends asked me this. She's a regular listener. She goes, "Are they just saying like, go F yourself when they put this image out there?" They're like, "We don't care what you think. Look, it should be obvious to anybody who actually uses their eyes, at least." This is two different people.
Yeah. Oh, and we'll look at Michael Jackson's funeral. Did you ever watch that? I never really cared anything about it. And then all of a sudden somebody said, "Hey, watch his funeral." So they have a good high resolution version on YouTube. And I'm sitting there, and it's a camera that's basically trained on the audience, and they're waiting for it to start. And it's basically on his driveway out and back behind his house. And everybody's sitting there, and it's a nice, quiet, peaceful setting. And these two motorcycle cops come roaring right up past, about 10 feet away from the audience there, right alongside of them where they're seated. And not a person looks over at these motorcycles riding by them. So I'm looking at this going, wait a second, you mean nobody just looked over to see who these motorcycles racing up the side of this driveway during a funeral? And then you start looking at the trees. And they messed up on the trees where you can tell it's a green screen that they put in the background. Now, I mean, why would they do something like that? I mean, there's no reason to fake something if it's real. So, I mean, you look at things like that and you go, here goes Hollywood again. Here goes all the, how much money they're making from this, story and scandal and all that stuff. And it becomes absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Was it maybe just a scam to sucker people out of their money? Because, I know people that wouldn't attend relatives. They wouldn't attend their own relative's funeral, putting in, via the internet, their info so they could get a chance to win tickets to go to the Michael Jackson funeral. And these are people who actually didn't go to funerals of their own family members.
I mean, where have we? Humanity is just crazy.
Well, you know, there was a guy out there who actually, you know, I kind of like George Bush in some ways because he was at least a lot more honest, I thought, about a lot of things. Because, you know, these George Bushisms that he got known for. And I think he was just being honest. You know, like the Constitution, what is that? Just a damn piece of paper. You're just being honest with you.
Well,
it's meaningless. One of his little butt boys, what's his name? Karl Rove. Okay. He got on TV and said, "We control reality."
I would agree with it. Yeah, they do.
That was a very honest admission. And, you know, who are they? When he says we, people are like, oh, he means the Illuminati. He means, you know, whatever.
No.
The old boys club. No, it means, yeah, the actors and directors, and he's one of the actors. Okay.
Yeah. What context was he saying that under? Was it like a press thing, or was he just was it speak? I'd be just curious.
I can't remember. It's on his list of quotes. It was in reference to world events or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, and he was pretty much just saying, yeah, we control your reality, you know?
The world event thing, what you just said, yeah, that you know, people think that, you know, we have this free internet, that we can go anywhere we want on the internet, but no, you really can't. You can't go to certain countries because each country, including the United States, has a firewall, and they can control what comes in and out of this country. Or you'd see a lot of, you know, say Middle Eastern people looking at the 9/11 stuff because they're being accused of things, you know, but you don't see any of that because it's being controlled. It's filtered. So, you know, they do control what happens to a certain extent, and actually they do control what happens in the United States when it comes to news because of the fact that the news is from a central location in, say, Phoenix, that happens to be a major uplink where they used to do the satellites, but now it's all fiber. Each city has a fiber hub that they can send out information to instantly to those bureaus. So they can control what one city has and what one other city has and what people don't see. So, you know, it's very possible that they can isolate to a certain point. And, you know, I get sent stuff all the time from Phoenix. People ask me to look at stuff, and I go, you know, I never heard about this thing. What you know, how come this isn't on the news? And, you know, some people hear about it and some people don't.
Well, let me ask you a question about Karl Rove. Okay, because I have a theory that he has a clone, doppelganger, or might be the same person. Is it true? What do you think? I know you haven't had a chance to do this ahead of time. If you look at images of Karl Rove and you look at images of Patrick the Starfish from SpongeBob, they look remarkably similar.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that one. I'll have to
do like an ear analysis? Wait, does
he have an ear? I don't think he has any.
I'll bring that image up and post that in the chat room as well. They look ridiculously alike. I think there's a case there. And coincidentally... Okay, you look into it for me?
Yeah, I'll look into it for you. I'll get right on that.
All right, I'll post the image in the chat room just a little bit. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Karl Rove, who happens to be a bottom, his nickname is Blossom.
No.
That's what George Bush called him.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
No.
Okay, and Patrick the Starfish, well, you know, what do gay guys call their lovers' rear exit? A starfish.
That's news to me.
So, you know, there's another case that they might be the same person. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, so as long as you look into it, let me know.
Yeah, I'll get on that one.
Now, what about somebody else that I had mentioned before? I think you may have had a chance to look into this. Alex Jones and Bill Hicks.
Yes, I have. You know, and I have nothing personal against Alex Jones. So, you know, people are saying I'm trying to attack him for a reason. I'm not. You know, I'm saying that there's definitely some similarities, not just in physical appearance, but in who he has around him too, who is employed by him. So there are some things that, I don't know, if I were being accused of that, I would just come out and just say, hey, you know, it's not me or it is me, whatever. And you know, this comes along the line of what we were saying about Jordan Maxwell and, you know, Bill Cooper. So, you know, there's people that have done this, that have faked their deaths. And, you know, Ryan Dunn is one of them that's doing it right now. And, you know, I just happen to know it because he flipped me the bird one time over here at the Dallas Occupied event. So, you know, do they do this all the time? I don't know, but I've seen it a couple times where, yeah, they have faked their deaths and then come back as a different person. And, you know, I don't know. But he definitely does look like it, sounds like it, has the same mannerisms and has the same agent and has the same, cameraman? Or was it his
yeah, they have the associations for a guy named Kevin Booth. I guess was Bill Hicks' manager or something to that effect, and.
Yeah, I didn't really get too much into that because, like I said, I go by I do the physical evidence of the ears and the face and all that, and that's where I sort of stop because everything else is sort of hearsay. But, people are telling me that, and, I've seen it on a lot of his sites, so he's obviously admitting it. So, I mean, it just adds to the fact. But,
Yeah, so, hold on.
How much pot are you smoking right now? Admit you're stoned. Yeah, I can just hear it.
Wow, I guess Alex Jones tapped our line there.
Yeah, he's following me around. I know it. Yeah.
He just accused you on air of being a pothead.
Yeah.
So, did you actually look at him, and is there something there with the ears, or
the ear? The only thing that's different is the lobe, which is a soft tissue area. But I've seen some actors that have actually had the lobe changed, and I've seen their photographs with a stitch in their ear. So, I mean, is it possible that he had surgery? Sure, it could be, but whatever. That's not something for me to say. But the inner ear does look the same. He has the same face. He just, I mean, it's. I'm not saying I'm absolutely sure, but I'm saying it's a possibility. It's definitely a possibility. And I can't get any really good photographs of Bill Hicks because they all seem to be grainy. But I have a couple of them that are sort of good. But Yeah,
it's remarkable how few photographs there are of Bill Hicks out there.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I can't say 100% it is, but I can say there's definitely a possibility when it comes to if you're looking at it the scientific point of view and you look at the ear that way. And his face, and the sound of his voice, he has the same mannerisms and he does talk about the same topics.
Well, there's something else that I had pointed out, which was as far as those two go, according to his bio, Alex Jones is in his early 30s.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and how can he be Kevin Booth, who claims to be like childhood friends with, when Kevin Booth is about the same age as Bill Hicks would be?
Yeah. So when a female lies about her age, okay, that's one thing. But when a male lies about it, and you're like, well, what are you doing? Why are you lying about that? I mean, that's a legitimate question. Why are you lying about your age?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll buy like 38. For Alex Jones, but I'm not buying like 31, 32 or whatever, his bio says he is. No.
And they're from the same area, Hicks and Hicks and Alex Jones are from Austin, right? Both of them.
And they're both
from Dallas, but yeah.
Both of their names are associated with Waco and very strongly.
Yeah, they were both there. Yeah. I saw the footage of Bill Hicks there with what's his name, Booth, yeah.
Yeah. And actually, there's a broadcast I've seen of a young Alex Jones, the young Alex Jones, pro-Christian, pro-Israel, and it didn't look like Alex Jones at all.
Really? I haven't seen that one, but yeah, his earlier days, he does look a lot like him. I mean, there's no way around that. He looks a lot like him.
And the thing is, they're both like huge figures in this truth movement. When we started, when you first started watching, at least I'm not sure if you went through this experience, but I'm sure a lot of my audience went through this. When you first start getting to this truth information, the post 911, post Matrix BS that was spoon-fed to us, you will come across those names right at the very beginning. Both of them, Bill Hicks and Alex Jones, and they are sacrosanct.
Yeah, I can't take that away from him. You got to give him credit. He is probably the first voice that people do hear, but and then a lot of people move on to other things. But yeah, so that's one thing. But yeah, I mean, my whole point about if you're going to be in the truth movement and you can't tell the truth about yourself, then I sort of have a problem with that. I mean, I'm an open book. You can find me. You can look me up on the internet, and I'm pretty easy to find, unfortunately. But I am. So, and I don't fear any questions. So people can ask me anything they want. But Alex and some of the other people you can't ask questions about because they don't want to talk about it. Well, that's up to them. That's their personal point of view. Well, I find that hard to.
I will say this in fairness, I do try to keep myself somewhat low key on that because
sure.
There are a lot of freaks out there, and I'm not worried about the government. Okay, I'm not worried about some like government assassin coming and black bagging me or something like that. Not at all. That's not
Hollywood. That's Hollywood again.
Yeah. What I do actually sometimes fret about is one of these crazy like truthers I've pissed off or something like that.
Yeah, I've had a stalker.
Those are the guys I worry about. So certain things I prefer to just, look, I'm already a very hated personality in this business. So there are people that might want to kill me just because they believe I have a receptionist named Lucifer. That must prove something to them,
Yeah, I know there are some crazy people out there, and I did have a stalker at one point. So yeah, but the problem that I have is, since I've been 15, I've been doing this stuff with the books, and I was pretty public when those books were around. So unfortunately, it's tough to get stuff off the internet once it's on there. So I'm just pretty much stuck with it.
Oh yeah, well that's something. That's why they have all these things. It's one of the things I planning on talk about at some point. I don't know if you remember like the MySpace days, and even before the MySpace days. What would they do especially when you were young, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're so externally focused. They send out all these surveys, these 50 questions, et cetera, about all sorts of things. And, you're a kid and you're just like, okay, I'll fill this out. And it was basically a huge mass collection of information about, people and their details to build profiles on people, like you're saying.
Sure.
Your computer profile, what software you have loaded on it, tells them a lot about who you are. You can move across the world and get your standard set of software that you always use, and they're like, oh, hey, look.
Yep, there he is again. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I tell people. If you don't want other people to know about it, don't do it on a computer. And, that works for and against you because, you see these people doing the same thing. You see the family members putting their Facebook pages up there, or Dave Weiss, and you see all the people, like, I think I found about 40 people in his Facebook friends list that are in the news doing fake events. And when you see that and you look at all these people and you go, wait a second, they're on this one guy's Facebook friends list, and this guy happens to work for Disney. You go, whoa, wait a second. So the coincidence, again, is now thrown out the window because now you got to look at this as being something to really pay attention to. And, yeah, they're just as dumb as anybody else because a bunch of actors putting their portfolio shots up there, and there you go, Got plenty of shots to work with ears.
Let me ask you about another person in this truth movement, which I know you've been looking at. And that would be Bill Cooper and Jordan Maxwell. What do you have to say about that?
From Arizona, yep. And actually, Bill Cooper interviewed Jordan Maxwell on the radio just before he died, or was murdered, so they say. And you look at the faces, and they are a match, except for Maxwell had a nose job. And he also has, his earlobes are stretched because he's put on weight, and you can tell his skin, the elasticity is gone because he's getting older. But it's the same inner ear. It's the same face. He's wearing even the same glasses, except for the nose piece is just a little bit different because he had a nose job. But when you look at that and then you listen to the voices, it's the same person. It's the same person. And you can't really, here's the other thing. Sometimes when they go on air, they change their voice a little bit, make it a little bit more professional, unlike me who really doesn't care. But no. But if you listen to some of the stuff that Cooper did that wasn't his radio show, some that was shot outside, he talks normal. And then when you listen to Maxwell, it's him. Absolutely him. You can't tell me that he's not.
So that one you were like, what, 90, 100%?
100%, yeah, because then you look at the fact that what happens to his books and videos of, Will Cooper's, they go through the roof. Then he can sell those forever and make tons of money on them. And the thing about him, it's sort of personal with me because, oops, talk about it.
All right, save that. You've got a rant coming, save it for the other side of the break. All right, we'll be right back, folks. All right, little religious persuasion there. We are back. And did you have a chance to do any compulsory analysis of the image of Karl Rove next to Patrick the Starfish?
It is him. I swear it's him.
If not, he's a doppelganger. At least they're the same actor.
Yeah.
Back to Bill Cooper and Jordan Maxwell. I know a lot of people are going to be very upset with that and think it's preposterous, right? Because Bill Cooper is another one of these names. Again, it's interesting. You've got Alex Jones paired up with Bill Hicks, right? Bill Hicks, he's dead. He's beyond question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right? And he's a hero to a lot of people in this movement. They're constantly quoting him and referencing him. And I brought that up once before in a show. And the same thing with Bill Cooper, right? People are like, well, according to Bill Cooper. I'm like, well, yeah, according to Bill Cooper, 10 years ago, yes, this is the way it was, but Bill Cooper's research hasn't grown.
Yeah, well, Bill Cooper, when I was doing the Kennedy assassination stuff, and, I'm no longer friends with Grodin, so if anybody says, well, he's friends with Grodin and Grodin's a hack, well, Grodin did some bad things that I totally distanced myself from him when he did the O.J. civil trial, and I told him that I wouldn't do the third book if he did that, and he decided to, and he owes lots of bad things with him. Anyway, but to get back to the point, when we were doing High Treason, just before we released that book, Bill Cooper was talking about his theories about JFK and being shot with an electric gun by the driver. And of course, we got a copy of that version, and we debunked it, and of course proved that he was wrong. And he also said some things about Oswald being in the doorway, which was Billy Lovelady that was in the doorway. So he made some statements that were proven to be false, and he never really could live that down because everybody would bring that up. You know, the electric gun thing in the limousine. I mean, come on. And Connolly and Nellie, John and Nellie are sitting there right in between the president and the driver, and plus the driver's hands don't leave the steering wheel. So you know, there's these things that he couldn't live down, and it was always brought up. So I would say, you know, is there a reason for him to do what he did? Possibly. There's motive. But then there's, you know, you look at the event that happened. He says they say he was murdered by a sheriff. And, you know, when you look at what they say on Wikipedia about it, they say there's a lot of questions and they still don't know what happened really. Well, right there it starts to, you know, you start to raise flags and you're looking into it deeper. And then, of course, the science says that it is him. When you look at it, it's his face and it's his ears and it's his voice. So, you know.
And he was shot. Where was he shot?
In front of his house.
Which was located where?
Arizona. Right, yeah, exactly. Another place. I mean, Arizona. What is up with Arizona? But, yeah, people ask me that all the time. Why am I so on Arizona? Well, Arizona happens to be basically a bigger film and video mecca than Hollywood because they shot all those old westerns there. It's been around forever. But it's cheaper to shoot productions there because of taxes and licenses and things like that. So people don't shoot in LA in California because it's too expensive. So the next big hub is Arizona, Tucson, and you know, Phoenix. And plus you have a lot of industry professionals that live there and a lot of actors, huge amount of actors. So, you know, it would make sense that that's the same place that all the news media have their hubs and their major, you know, their uplinks. So, you know, and then, yeah, you see the connection between that and Raytheon as being the number one, you know, employer of that area. And you see a lot of the connections start to make sense.
Well, if you watch the plot of Superman 3, they were going to create a huge, massive earthquake, which, by the way, still hasn't happened, despite all the predictions, and cause this earthquake that would make California slide off into the sea. And then Arizona would be the new California.
Really? I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's funny. Wow.
Maybe they're planning ahead, moving the studios for when the Lex Luthor succeeds.
Art imitating life or life imitating art. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, you know, I have been saying for quite a while that the truth movement is full of actors.
Yeah. You know, I don't know about actors, but they are not adding up to what they're supposed to be, and they're just how can I put it? You know, I don't have proof that this person is that person or this person's that person, but you can see that what they're doing is not effective in getting the message out in a way that we need it to be gotten out. And so they're failing at what they're supposed to be doing.
And by actors, I don't mean necessarily like, you know, they're all a bunch of, you know, there are people, I believe there are agents in it that were set there from the very beginning because it all very conveniently fell in our lap after we were programmed by all the movies that came out in the 90s to be receptive to them.
Yes, I can see that.
And I believe, you know, there are a few key people that are agents. Let's say, like, I've looked at a lot of the stuff that Jordan Maxwell has said about Hollywood, and I said, you know what, he made that up. It's false. It's another, you know, rabbit hole, a dead end that leads to nowhere. And I've disproven a lot of his claims on this show. Not, you know, sit here and stroke my chest or whatever. Keep it clean. But there are a lot of people that are basically just fools, you know, useful fools, and they're just repeating basically all the information they regurgitated early on.
Yes.
And I think that's probably the largest part of the people, just basically unpaid volunteers towards this cause.
Yes, and they don't have the common sense enough to stop for a second and think about what they're repeating, and is it something that's verifiable? And that's why I try to stay away from, you know, testimonies and what people say, because people lie. So you really can't. And people, they repeat stuff like you said, and you get as many views as you do channels. You know, CNN or Fox News, whatever pick. You know, that's what this person's point of view is, or the other person's point of view is. So they don't think for themselves. And, you know, so I go, okay, what's the solid evidence? Where can we break this thing down and find where we can have a solid foundation to work from? And photographs are definitely a key. But, you know, that doesn't help when it comes to things in the past. So, you know, I don't know. And people's intentions, you have to look at their actions. And
Yeah.
when people attack me, I say, well, how do I benefit from this? Because I've turned down book deals, I've turned down video deals, and I'm not selling anything. So if you don't like what I say, well, change the channel because you didn't lose anything except for your time. And, and they start to see that, and I don't, I'm not out here to make money on this thing. I do put at the end of some of my videos, if you do like what you see, please donate. That's helpful. But you see where the money's going. It goes right to making videos that are, talking about things that nobody else is talking about. So, they can attack if they want.
One of the points I have raised is, there are also a lot of charlatans in this, where I'm sure you've heard this, this prediction after prediction about certain events that were supposed to take place already, from the North American Union Highway or whatever, the superhighway, to all sorts of other things that none of them have come true, by the way.
Yeah.
And you have people, and even small-time players in this, making prediction after prediction, and then after the prediction fails to materialize, they just go on and nobody's calling anybody out on it. Are we so conditioned to be in that receptive state? We're like, okay, well, I'm going to tune in next week and see what happens on next week's episode.
They just overlook it, or they excuse it. Yeah, but a lot of those people that they create those things, they make up those predictions in order to discredit other people that are so willing to follow them. So people are repeating that message over and over and over again, and all of a sudden it doesn't come true. So then they look like fools, and they've of course now just